We'd love to hear from you. I've added a couple new pages to the website. If you go under schedule, you'll see that there's now the relationship series information that we're going to be doing while we are gone to Vanderbilt for Ryan's surgery in December and the 1st of January. There's also the potential for an intensive in 2025 that hasn't been done yet. We're looking at either March, April, or May. We're attempting to contact the facility in Abingdon, Virginia, and see what dates are open. We're going to do a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again, a 3-day personal code training, which will be between the 9-day why, and then it's going to be followed by a 9-day teacher's training. Now, the teacher's training requires that you have participated in a past 9-day why, or you're participating in the one that's going to be before, just right before the teacher's training. And the 3-day personal code training that's going to be between the two requires that you have participated in a past teacher's training or laws of living, or you are going to participate in the teacher's training that's being scheduled right behind the 3-day. So I know that's a little confusing, but dates will be coming up, and we'll give you more information as we have it. Like I said, we're checking with the facility to see what dates are available there. And then also Jurate is going to be doing the food. Hopefully it'll fit in with her schedule as well. And many of you know Jurate, and she's a phenomenal raw chef. And her and Tom actually stopped by to visit with us a few weeks ago. It was great to see them. And Michael has joined us now, so I'm going to say welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Yes, it will be really cool to put that intensive together. We'll see just what the timing looks like. And Jurate is actually going to bring, she's gotten into a, what can I say, a different understanding of some aspects of food. And so she'll be introducing some new food dynamics process, cooking without, or preparing dishes without oils and using natural whole foods instead of things like refined oils. So we'll be experimenting with that on top of the fresh and raw dietary regimen that we do. So not sure exactly what that's going to look like yet, but I'm certainly delighted and excited that she's going to bring that to the forefront. And other than that, we are just all systems go, rock and roll. And Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
Well, Celinda's hand was up before, and Dr. Tim didn't get to her, so I'm going to turn on her microphone and see if there's some way that we can support her. Welcome, Celinda.
Hello, hello. Of course I have something.
Hey there, young lady. Welcome.
How are you?
We are doing well.
Back in Virginia. Our mountain is totally covered with snow now.
Really? Well, I was looking at the next 10 days weather here, and we're running pretty much 50s during the day and up into this, or pardon me, 50s at night and up into the 70s during the day. It's like, gee, is winter actually going to come here? We did have 2 nights back, about 2 weeks ago that were 32 degrees, but we didn't get a hard freeze, didn't, kill everything in the garden. It's still, things are ripening. I just picked a bunch of peppers yesterday, big, beautiful, juicy peppers, and it looks like the garden is going, for at least another 10 days. So, and no sign of it cooling off. The 10-day out, the nighttime low was 41. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And when the snow gets here, it'll be plenty soon enough.
Yeah, we've had 20s. I'd be curious to know what USDA growing zone you're in. If you don't know.
6B.
And 6B?
6B is a boy. Yep.
Wow, you're not that much higher than ours, but you have all of that moderation by the Atlantic Ocean, too. We don't have that. We're definitely...
Yeah, we're 6 hours away from the ocean. I don't know how far that moderating influence goes. We're 6-7 hours away, but we've certainly had a wonderful growing season, a wonderful summer, and it'll be interesting to just see how long fall lasts.
Really? Well, you know, depending on how people drive, it takes us about 8 hours to get to Portland, but we have several humongous mountain ranges between me and us and the ocean. Probably does have some effect on you, more different than we, because we just have these hot, dry summers like the Southwest, not quite as bad, fortunately, and cold, wet, very cold and very wet winters. So it's very challenging. But our mountain is totally white now. We call it our grandmother mountain.
Oh, cool.
And and the mountains all around us, and even the low foothills have snow on them. Today it's probably going to be in the 40s. Yeah. Well, I want to talk about my perspective for my personal life in relation to what Dr. Tim and Susan and Magda talked about in the first hour of the show. And so
okay, well, lay a little foundation for me, if you would, because I didn't hear the first part of the show. So just give me enough foundation so I know where you're coming from and we can be of best support. By the way, one of the things that I'm working on, if anybody happens to have knowledge in this arena, with our growing season this year, we've had 2 beautiful papaya plants that are standing about 2.5 feet tall, and I've been looking for input on whether or not we can actually, you know, take them indoors and out and make them flourish to the point where we get fruit out of them. They're just totally volunteered in the garden, and it seems a waste to just cut them down or let them freeze, but haven't found anybody with knowledge about that aspect of the garden. So anyway, let's go ahead with what you're... Okay.
I lived in Hawaii for almost 15 years, or about 15 years.
Right, well, it's whether or not with being in 6B, whether we can get them to survive and grow into trees big enough. You know, I know when they're small we can take them indoors, but then they come to a point where they're not going to be indoor or not at all, and whether they just you know, would die off once the cold comes. It seems to be the consensus. Yeah.
Although
unfortunately,
I had a friend who lived in Texas, sort of around the Livingston area of Texas, in the piney woods there, and she had papaya trees growing. She had them under a very thick tarp, a clear plastic tarp, on the south side of her house, and she actually got papayas from them. The best, there are several varieties of papaya. One that's actually one of my favorites is the Mexican papaya, or what I would call a salad papaya. It's not as sweet, and it's much denser than what you usually get in the store, and they're humongous. They can get as big as a small watermelon.
Really?
And the tree is very short. Yeah. So if you happen to see in any stores any Mexican papayas, I would say those trees are about 6 feet tall, if I remember correctly. They're not real tall. And you might have success depending on how large your house is, whether you have a south-facing window. You might be able to get it to thrive in a pot and actually get it big enough. You need an elephant to take it out with, probably, though, because it'll be heavy. But you might be able to get it into a greenhouse or something like that. If you can get, I don't know how much property you have, but if you can get a good tunnel, a big enough tunnel for your garden, you might be able to put it in there and get it to produce. There's another papaya that I found that's a small papaya, and I don't think it's very big. I don't think the plant itself gets very big at all, but it really is higher altitude papaya that is native to South America somewhere. You might, I don't think I have any information on it anymore. I used to, but you might be able to locate it with some searching, and it will take the cooler temperatures. And if I remember correctly, they basically started it from logs of the old papayas that they cut up. You know, it would sprout. I don't know if I could even find that information for you, but you might check out with like these Florida nurseries where they have things like mangoes and stuff like that. You might check out and see what you can find. But those
I assume that these two are, from papayas that we bought in the store, and the seeds have just, volunteered to come up, and so I imagine they're kind of your traditional warm or tropical papaya. I'm just wondering if we could preserve them. But anyway, share with us what's on your mind. What are you working on?
Okay. Well, you remember I talked to you about that full catastrophe living, and I have just started reading the introduction. It's that mindfulness-based stress reduction program that was started back east in New York somewhere, or Massachusetts, I guess Massachusetts. When I got into the original introduction, not the revised introduction, I got 2 full pages of what Jon Kabat-Zinn meant and what Dorber the Greek meant by full catastrophe living, and it didn't have anything to do with disaster. It had to do with the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly, the whole enchilada of life. And so I can see why he titled it that, because who he gets, if he still has his program going in the hospitals, I don't know, with the insurance situation that Dr. Tim and Susan were talking about, maybe he doesn't even have it in the hospitals anymore, I don't know. But anyway, that is a full spectrum program for people, the few people who were referred by their doctors who threw up their hands and said we can't do anything for these people. And basically what that program is, hey, it's time for you to take responsibility for your life. And that's basically the program. It has to do with
leave the
meditation
one world
and
universal
exercise
religion of blame. Have to leave the one world universal religion of blame and actually take responsibility for your life. Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
And it's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful book. It's a hopeful book. It's an affirmative book. It's a gentle book. It's just all the best of our spiritual, emotional, therapeutic traditions all wrapped up in one little enchilada. And it's offered, and he wrote this full book, which in the paperback is about 2 inches thick, just so people could do it themselves, because like Dr. John Sarno, how many people went off from Dr. Sarno's books only and took care of their problems? And, well, 10 to 15%, wasn't that what Dr. Sarno said? 10 to 15% will even consider this? Yeah, and that's what he's offering. So why I'm leading in with that, I'll send you the 2 pages where he describes why he stayed with the title Full Catastrophe Living, because it's really, really fun to read. It's delightful.
Okay. I'll look forward to reading it, because it...
Yeah. I am so grateful. I am so grateful that I basically walked away from the medical system and the religious system, and I have now walked away from the political system. That doesn't mean I don't vote. You know what I mean? It means that I have realized that and taken more and more responsibility for my life, which ultimately means that I have to take responsibility for my personal life with my relationships. No easy task, right? Considering all of the downloads.
Yeah, Yeshua talks about, I'm in this world but not of it.
Right,
and
exactly.
My take is, what he's saying is, in the context especially of the study we're doing with this book of Thomas, is he's saying, I've discovered the source of my human life. It is within me. It is not out there. And I choose to stay connected to that creative self, to that state of being, and bring that into the world rather than the world resonate my past and I live out of the dynamics of the past that have been unresolved in me.
Right. Was it Hildegard of Bingen who said, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all shall be exceedingly well? I can't remember, but I have modified, paraphrased her little mantra just slightly to reflect the now moment. And I say, all is well, all is well, all is exceedingly well. And I've been using that too, Michael and Jeannie, for my, and being much more gentle with myself when I make mistakes.
Nice.
Because that's deep programming. That is really deep programming. I mean, it's like we are dissolving layer by layer this program.
That's exactly what forgiveness is.
Yep. And so even though
that's exactly what it is.
May seem to be resistant, and maybe I am in certain areas, and I have to be right, and it has to be my way because I am right, and I get to get angry because it's not my fault, it's the other person's fault. I see that erosion.
I get to be angry because there's anger in me that I choose to be responsible for, you
right, said? Exactly. Yeah, I'm saying it in the other way on purpose. And so, yeah, and I'm just very grateful. I'm very grateful that
nice.
Ruha is able to get past my resistance, or that I'm able to unconsciously know that I'm not ready and she's not going to help because I'm not ready. She has to find another little path to get to me so that I can hear her. And I think it's such a sweet place when I'm in it because I can rest for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
So I don't worry about the elections. I don't worry about who's winning. And when Dr. Tim said that each side is just convinced they're right, and they're all saying the very same thing that the other side is saying, it's a train heading for the washed out bridge, and it's all the other side's fault. I'm saying, how about saying, if we feel like we're both sides in disaster, how about talking about it? At least that's the beginning of common ground.
Well, you got to quit the one world universal religion of blame to do that.
Yeah, I know.
And that's not an easy church to resign from. It's so embedded in the culture. It's so embedded in our family systems that's a tough church to quit. It's an addiction.
Don't tell me. So you do it little by little, gentle by gentle, just like Dr. Tim and Susan were talking about getting off all of these drugs or alcohol or cigarettes or anything else, the parabolic curve, the healing crisis, which is seen by the medical profession as a relapse in most cases. And so I'm excited. Larry and I were talking about this the other night. I'm done with the medical system can't help me anymore. It's now me. I've taken the x-rays. I've had the blood work done. I have one more consultation with my PA. She doesn't know it's only one more, but I have. And so now it's up to me to craft my own healing process. I've been given that freedom. And I'm standing up. I'm standing tall again at one point.
Well, my offering there would be, and of course standing tall would be the metaphor for stepping away from this collapsing that happens as a result of bone loss. So I'll support you in that regulatory speech and being able to rebuild your structure on that. But my offering would be, there's a lot of tragedy within the way medicine is practiced today, and at the same time, I think it's important to be your own primary healthcare provider, but that doesn't mean that you throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that there are people who've developed wonderful skills and wonderful understandings that can be of support. You just need to know how to discern where the real support is and where it's not. So rather than discarding it out of hand,
right? I do agree.
I think taking responsibility and being your own primary. You know what help you need, and then in areas, I mean, we can't develop all of the skills. Maybe given enough time we could, all of the skills needed to keep everything in balance. So knowing where to go for support can be a very beneficial thing, and being willing to receive that support.
Also realizing that life is always trying to support us, and if we're open and willing, that the information comes, like the vitamins, like the Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine, like which I am going to order today, like the different support systems from not only doing our research, but what just happens to come to us by comments from people, or something we read in a book, or something like that. Yeah. It's all a web of connection, and we just decide whether we're going to connect or not in loving, helpful ways. So that's it. I mean, I just thought I'd share that. And I'm so grateful, I got this full catastrophe living book right on the free shelf at the secondhand store, because there's no louder foghorn than that. Like, wake up, pay attention. This is about
well, I'd be delighted.
Discipline.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to hear the rationale for the title that you said you'd send. I'd like to see that.
And I got the vitamins too.
Cool. Awesome.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Fabulous.
And thanks for all the support, and carry on.
You got it.
And Michael.
You got it. We are extending active present love in your direction continuously.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
And to Larry as well. Tell him we said hello.
All right. I will.
Just got back.
Oh, he just got back from his walk. He's taking care of himself, doing his best to help me take care of myself by telling me, take care of yourself.
And then demonstrating how it's done, eh?
And then demonstrating how it's done. Okay.
Nice.
Bye-bye.
Nice. All right. Have a blessed one. Bye-bye. All right, Miss Jeannie. Do we have any questions in email or anything from the app? Anybody in the phone queue with a hand up, or?
Well, Susan's hand's up, but I think it's also left over from Dr. Tim, but I'll turn on her microphone. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, guys. I'm not as relaxed
hey, young lady.
as Celinda is about the election. I'm afraid I'm doing a lot of breathing and feeling hopeful, but I'm definitely thinking about it.
Well, holding the space for sanity to prevail in the nation.
Absolutely. Yeah. We kind of stumbled on the rally that Kamala Harris attended or ran or talked at. Last night we were on a walk through Muhlenberg College in Allentown, not knowing that the rally she was holding was right there in their gymnasium. So we met a lot of very upbeat, happy, hopeful, bright, beautiful people walking through the campus who didn't, like us, didn't have tickets to this event, but who were happy to be in the vicinity of such joy. It was just amazing. And it was a happy thing, yeah.
Well, I don't know if you remember the first show in 2016 after the event, but if you remember, we were doing a whole lot of processing with some women who had experienced being abused.
Yeah.
at the hands of the minds of the type that were attempting to take over that point. So, and my thought today is the same as the thought I had back then, and that is all of this is just an awesome gift if we step into taking responsibility and recognizing that if I'm of this world and I'm in trauma, that the world is literally conspiring to heal me. And if I am capable of trauma, I'm capable of trauma because I'm capable of trauma. And when I recognize the world is going to respond and bring that up in me, if I choose to be responsible and free myself of it, then I become an agent of change in the world. So,
well, this is a huge
I think that one's still true.
Yeah, it's a huge collective endeavor, though. It's not just
Yes.
one person. It's a whole lot of us.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and remembering that Einstein tells us if we think we're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, we're living in an optical delusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's time to wake up from the delusion. You know, the mind that I bring to the world has an impact on the world. The mind that I respond from that is the same as the world mind also has an impact. What impact do I choose to deliver?
Right. I'm approaching my son, who is going to go for a walk with me, so I'm going to make this short, and I'll have to get off the radio show. But all I can say is I am choosing over and over again to be on the other side, the better, see, that's a judgment already, on the happier side of this outcome that I think is going to happen. So,
joining you in living out of our better angels, as someone said.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well,
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I got to go. So have
Tell
a
Jonathan
good rest
said
of
hello
the
and
show.
send our blessings. Alrighty.
Michael Rice says, hello, Jonathan, and he's sending blessings. Hello. He says, hello. Okay.
Awesome. Enjoy your walk. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Okay, bye.
All right. Well, Miss Jeannie, what's next?
It's all quiet.
All right. Well, let's go to saying number 65 in the Book of Thomas, a study we've been doing now for a couple of months and will continue for some time. And saying number 65, Yeshua says, there's a good man who had a vineyard to, a worker, husbandman, that they might work it, and he received the fruit in their hand. He sent his servant that the husbandman might give the fruit of the vineyard, basically pay his rent. They seized the servant and beat him, and all but killed him. Excuse me, my phone just did a flip here, and so I'm going to have to get back to that page. So they seized the servant, beat him, and all but killed him. And the servant came and told his master, and the master said, well, perhaps they didn't know you. So he sent another servant, and the second servant got beaten. And then the master sent his son, and he said, perhaps they will reverence my son. Those, that the husbandman knew that he was their heir to the vineyard, seized him and killed him. He that has ears, let him hear. It's like, well, what the heck does that mean? If we put that passage in context with the last several sayings, the whole conversation has been about whether you are alive or dead, whether you are in this world and of this world and therefore dead, or you are in this world but not of this world, that you are alive. And many people become enamored with the fruit of their creative process, and oftentimes that creative process is totally unconscious. They're so enamored that they destroy the source of the results they're producing in their lives. I think this is what Yeshua is getting at here. So you were given a gift, which, how do I create a human life? Do I have a clue what that even means, how I can do that? No. So do I have a human life, and am I therefore alive? Or am I so enamored with the results, the rent, the fruit of my labors, especially if I'm not conscious of I'm the one who's set up and created this fruit in my life, whether the fruit is the good, the bad, or the ugly. So this passage, I think, is about having a true human life and therefore being alive, or being dead because getting lost in the fruit of your creative process, you kill the source. And if one loses themselves in the results of their lives, then they've lost their own human life. So I think what he's saying here, or what he's inviting us to do, is to take the time to develop our eternal being rather than ignore it or kill it. That we give something of our original intelligence and resources back to conscious experience of being. And when you have that, when one is in the world of satiation, when one is in this world and of this world, the opposite of what Yeshua said, I'm in it but not of it, then satiation becomes the objective. Oh, I need some sort of sensation. And that sensation is so inferior, what people call happiness is so inferior. Looking for a reward in results that results can't deliver. And when I take the time to taste the source of being, just like compared to all of the wonders and fun and excitement and pleasures of the world, which can be quite nice, can be quite sweet. But on a scale of 1 to 100, if you are locked into, quote unquote, the rewards of the world, the things that the world would give you, like your experience will never go above a 10 on a scale of 100. Where if you take time to really nurture this eternal being that you are and allow that full experience of love to come into your structure, compared to sensation, this experience of being brings in such a flood of life, joy, fulfillment, that to the mind that's only known sensation, it's unfathomable. It's like, what could be better than this? So in this particular passage, I think what Yeshua is warning against is that not to squander your being on some offering from the past, some sensation. Take time to taste it, take time to be with it. But remember, there's only sensation here. Beyond it comes the real fruit of your eternal being. And if people keep getting lost in the world of sensation and results and things, then they destroy the capacity to move from that level 10 to 100. And they've basically lost their lives. So when he finishes that passage about the several servants and then the son who's killed by the man who's working the vineyard, he then says, he was here years, let him hear. Our listening comes from the content of our brain cells. I can remember a time when I would have read this passage and gone, well, that rotten husbandman, boy, he deserves to be killed. And that's such a surface interpretation of what Yeshua is trying to offer to people, what Yeshua is trying to give people. And it's hard to imagine what the full-blown experience of being is if you haven't been there. And until one has had that experience, they can't even talk about the possibility. So when the possibility arises, it's killed off. It's destroyed. Process that Yeshua was teaching is that of awakening to that unfathomable presence of love that many have named the Supreme Being, all kinds of names for it, like it's something external, and it isn't external. So there's a statement that said, and I don't remember who the quote came from, but actually I think it might have been me. In all you're doing, if you don't get being, then you aren't. If your life is one of do, perform, satisfy the power person dynamic, satisfy the need for satiation, then there isn't room for your true existence to flower within you. And therefore, you get the result of a life that is not fueled by the presence of love that it's designed to be fueled by. So now you're limited to, the scriptures talk about, well, you get your 70, and then it's over until it's enlivened by that level 100 experience. Your physiology will pretty much wear itself out, playing out the genetic game within 70 or so years. We're not designed for that. But when we talked about the purpose workshop and, imagine the child in utero that has to build its own body and it quits about the 3-month point. When it's forcibly ejected into the world, then it doesn't exist as a human being. And again, fortunately, our human forms, the structure's there to build them on their own without our conscious participation, at least. But to build the spiritual body, the active presence of love in you that is your created essence takes your participation. And the world is a distraction to that. And we need to wake up and come to value and invest in at least a tithe. And I'm not talking about money here. I'm talking about time, intelligence. Well, money comes into it. Money and energy, that you take 10% of your original intelligence, 10% of your time, 2.4 hours a day toward your spiritual work. And in doing so, you develop an eternal awareness to do that. And then saying 68, we're down to about 10 minutes, so I'll just check with Jeannie. Or no, pardon me, we've got 20 minutes. You're doing pretty well. Have you out there, Miss Jeannie, with a hand up, phone queue? Anything happening in the chat room?
Nope, it's all quiet.
Okay, cool. So then 66, statement 66. And Yeshua says, teach me concerning this stone which the builders rejected, cornerstone. Now, what are the builders? The builders are the people in this parable, to me at least. The builders are those who are engaged in, producing in the world. They're out there, they're producing. They're like, look at this, look at this. But you'll notice a lot of the producers, like you see people who are multi-millionaires, billionaires, whose children commit suicide because the builder was busy building, didn't have time to nurture, to take care of the truth of self, let alone their own children. So what Yeshua is saying, that what those who are out there producing oftentimes do is reject the foundation of their true lives. And what is the foundation of your eternal life? If you're enamored in the world and you got to go, 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 you got to produce, 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 you got to do, then you've rejected the cornerstone of a true human life. And the person who lives in that realm really seldom cares about the human life of others. It'll walk over them, it will steal from them, it will destroy from them, it will con them, it will do anything it needs to do in order to glorify the doing. The foundation of your eternal life of mind, and we talked about, again, the purpose worksheet and the purpose workshop, and that everyone has exactly the same purpose, to develop a viable conscious spiritual body. That's the cornerstone that most people reject because they're so busy in the world. That's what he's saying here. So again, saying 66, teach me concerning the stone which the builders rejected. It is the cornerstone. Recognizing that you need to develop a viable conscious spiritual body, that which is made of love with all of its expressions, compassion, creativity, is the cornerstone of life. And that's not found in the world. Those who are enamored with the results value the things of the world. Value the things of the world and will invest their life force in those things, not realizing that they're paying the price of giving up their true eternal lives. So rejecting the cornerstone, not wanting to invest in the inner world, which without it makes an actual life meaningless. You look at people that are willing to walk over others and destroy others' lives in order to get their stuff, and it's like, are you even human? How is that possible? And people who have a human life, when they watch someone doing that, they're like, they can't even fathom that even exists. How could someone do that? So you recognize in the context of this particular statement that the world is a drug that tends to distract us from the cornerstone. Children oftentimes are raised on outer shiny things. They're not taught about the inner life, but that's where the richness comes from. That's where the value comes from. If it's all outer, I can remember the first time that I was involved in taking care of the remnants of someone's life, someone who had died, and it was gathering stuff and, selling it, getting rid of it, sending it to the dump. And what struck me about that was, and maybe that's part of what helped me to go, I want to do something different. But it was like, is that all there is? This person's been around X number of years, and their lives are over, and all there is this stuff that most other people don't value and just want to get rid of. If we raise children on shiny outer things, and that's, most parents, at least my experience of them, is that the children, it's like, oh, look here, look here, look here in the outer world, rather than being taught that there's a cornerstone of life within. The drugging of the world blocks us from doing the inner work and discovering what's truly valuable. Some philosopher said some time ago, as you travel through life, no matter what your goal, Keep your eye upon the donut and not upon the hole. Remember what's important. You know, that statement that we brought forward from Rumi, remember the root of your being, the one who owns your breath and your moments, or you'll be missing a valuable keenness in your life. So that would be my take on saying 66, and Jeannie tells me that we have a hand up, so let's say hello to our caller.
It's actually not a hand up, it's Solly in the chat room, and they're in Finland, and he said absolutely holding the space for sanity to prevail in your country, as Michael said, also that and the dying and suffering to stop in Ukraine and Palestine. Upon daily things here, I would like to get Michael's take on how to remain at peace and hold the space with struggles at a different magnitude happening right next to you and far from you.
Right.
So how can he stay at peace and hold the space in that?
Well, I think that fits right in with this particular passage. The cornerstone of life is that your life is internal, your human life, your connectedness. When Yeshua says, I'm in this world but not of it, what he's saying is, I have dealt with what's in me that resonates with the drama and trauma of the world. So I can come to the drama and trauma of the world. I can come to the pain of the world with a human life intact because I have valued the cornerstone of my own life, and that is that I am a created human being that comes from love and is the presence of love. And I have worked through and dealt with everything in me. And I think that if you go to the story about the Garden of Gethsemane and we hear about the sweating of blood, you know, as a naturopathic physician, if someone were to be at the demand of, you know, in the next, 10 hours, you're going to face the biggest physiological challenge of your life, mental, emotional, physiological, i.e. you're going to be tortured and your physiology is going to be destroyed. If you're going to survive that, the requirement would be healing crisis you could imagine. And when we read the story of Yeshua in the Garden of Gethsemane, what I hear there from my medical brain cells, from my medical training is, here's someone who's in a major healing crisis, and what would that look like? You know, when we look at the three things that happen, that healing and disease are identical symptomatically, it's just a matter of what direction is the energy moving. And so if someone has a genetic history of drama and trauma and pain and loss and war and all the crazy things we're seeing happening in the world, which means there are millions of people participating in creating that, if I have that history in me, then I'm going to need to go into my own Garden of Gethsemane, into that state where I connect with the presence of love and I allow myself to mentally, emotionally, and physiologically move through those unresolved energetic patterns of my generations. Now, we're told in the Garden of Gethsemane that Yeshua sweat blood. Remember, on the healing process, on a physical level, healing looks like any kind of physical symptom you've ever had and low energy. On a mental level, looks like any kind of negative thought we've ever had and confusion. On an emotional level, looks like any kind of negative feeling one has had, and depression. That's what healing looks like when you hit new levels of vitality and you're willing to process out whatever goes against it. The extreme case that Yeshua is called upon in that situation has chosen to participate in. It makes sense to me that his healing process, to get to that level, his healing process would look like sweating blood. What in me haven't I dealt with, when I look at situations like that? And I'll use an example. There was a time frame years ago when I would not, it's like, I only want to put healthy, wonderful things in my energy system. So I would not go to, for instance, a violent movie. And one day I had the guidance, actually it was more than guidance, it was a demand, to go and see this absolutely horrible film. It's called The Island. I haven't looked at what year that film came out, but it was just a new film out. So that was a year, and I don't know, it's probably 40 years or more ago. And I had the guidance to go to that movie, and it's like, I don't go to movies like that. No, I'm not going. And the inner guidance was demanding, it's like, go. It's like, no, go. Okay, I'll go. And the opening scene, or one of the opening scenes, somebody climbs up over the back of a boat somewhere in the Caribbean or wherever, and very graphically has their leg hacked off. And I'm sitting watching this, and I don't go to these kind of movies. And it's like, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I sitting in this theater right now? And the response I got was, Michael, you have a belief in the world of bodies and being harmed. Now, if you hold that belief, you can go out and produce that belief in the world. You will find somebody to do that kind of harm. Or you can sit here and you can breathe and you can take responsibility for what comes up and moves in you until you clean that out of your system. That would be my take of Yeshua sweating blood in the Garden of Gethsemane, and then understanding that as the active presence of love, and we're told that in that particular situation, he came to the insight of and the willingness to say, I'm going to take on the quote-unquote sins of the world. And remembering that the word sin is simply an archery term that means off the mark. When I engage in an energy that doesn't belong, I put an energy into my structure that's going to cause some form of trauma or pain. And so what kind of traumas and pains at that stage 2,000 years ago were being seen with the Romans coming in, and I mean, life meant nothing. And so when he handles that in himself, and my take would be, arrives as the cornerstone, fully experiencing himself as the presence of love, even as he looks on all of the pain and trauma and suffering in the world, that he steps into the place where he can help to process that he can be the space of love for that healing. And to me, you know, we hear, like, for instance, you know, with all the any of the conflicts going on, we hear, well, you know, what we need is some conflict resolution. Well, you know, when two people in conflict come together and somebody comes and does resolution, that's really nice. But guess what those two people are going to do if they never face themselves and heal? They're going to go find somebody else to play the conflict out with, or they're going to come back and clash with each other again. We you know, conflict resolution, you know, coming up with the solution between what are we going to do with this land, or all that stuff that people appear to be fighting over, they're not fighting over. They're fighting over the pain and the trauma that they hold within themselves. Can I come to that kind of pain and trauma that literally is costing lives? Can I be the space for cleaning that up? And if I can't, then it's my work. So now, Jeannie and I, and in fact, we watched a pretty heavy-duty film the other night. And both of us, at the completion of it, were, you know, before we went to sleep, it's like, Ruka, you know, support us in clearing out what's been resonated by this trauma that we just observed. Support me in doing my work so that I can be the space of love for this. So could I walk into the meeting with the Israelis and the Palestinians, and rather than seeing if we can find some resolution of the problems that don't have anything to do with healing, and everybody's going, let's resolve the problems. You know, in our communication, did you hear what I think I said workshop? We talk about problem solving, and that, you know, most everybody wants to solve, you know, let's just solve these problems. And nobody wants to step in and look inside themselves and do the healing work. If I do the healing work, then I can arrive at the trauma and be the space of love that can help to deliver the healing. And it's only what I face in me that empowers me to do that. So that would be my take, is continue to do your work. And I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that I'm finished with doing my work. That each of us, I mean, we've all got a genetic history, and when we look at the history of the world that we can read, a lot of it's pretty bizarre, insane, violent, vicious, just craziness. And so am I willing to face all of that in me and bring it to resolution? Then I could step into those spaces and help to facilitate the healing process. So that would be my take. And if you want to drop Jeannie your email address, I actually recently did an article about the healing of what's going on in the Middle East and what it's going to take. That it's not about solving the problems, it's about the healing process. And each person involved who is a committed, if you put the average person on one side of the argument in the room with the average person on the other side of the argument, you'll find that you've got two very deeply, deeply committed religious people who are each card-carrying members of the one world religion of blame, pointing a finger at the other one. If only you changed and my life could be okay. If only I change my life. If only I heal, my life is going to be okay. But if I reject that cornerstone, as this particular passage of Yeshua is talking about, then I'm always looking for somebody else to make the change. Am I willing to show up healed and to bring resolution? So that would be my offering. And so if you give Jeannie your email address in the chat room, I'll send you that article, and that may help to fill in the details. And in the meantime, we're down to the last few seconds, so I'm going to just wish everybody